Welcome to today's Explainer, everyone. Go ahead and get settled, because for today's history lesson, we're diving into an absolutely epic story. We're talking about the breathtaking 300-year rise and the incredibly dramatic fall of medieval India's Vijayanagara Empire. Seriously, get ready to take some mental notes because this is a saga packed with unimaginable wealth, massive armies, and ultimately a really shocking betrayal.
Here's our timeline for today's lesson. We'll start with the birth of the empire, track its four ruling dynasties, hit its golden age, and then explore the betrayal and civil war that led straight to the Battle of Talikota, wrapping up with its fall and lasting legacy. Starting with Part 1, the birth of an empire, and its role as a bulwark in the south. Our chronological journey kicks off in the early 14th century. Now, you have to imagine a time of immense regional instability, where borders across the Indian subcontinent were constantly shifting. You've got northern Muslim invasions from the Delhi Sultanate aggressively pushing south, and older, established Hindu states are just completely crumbling under the pressure. The Yadava Empire falls in 1294, and then the Kampili Kingdom violently collapses in 1327. But out of this massive power vacuum, two brothers named Harihara and Bukka decide to seize the moment. In 1336, they establish a powerful new stronghold right on the banks of the Tungabhadra River. This wasn't just some run-of-the-mill kingdom. It acted as a desperately needed bulwark against those relentless invasions pushing down into the south.
Moving on to Section 2, the four ruling dynasties and their 300-year political succession. To really ground our understanding of how this empire managed to survive and actually thrive for 3 whole centuries against constant external threats, we need to map out its political backbone.
So there's a distinct progression of 4 dynasties that basically carried the empire from its birth all the way to its demise. We kick things off with the founding Sangama dynasty, and they ruled for nearly 150 years. Then we get a brief but super crucial transitional period under the Saluva dynasty. That naturally gives way to the famous Tuluva dynasty, who oversaw the empire's absolute peak. And finally, the Aravidu dynasty, who unfortunately had to preside over the empire's highly fragmented, really tragic final century.
That brings us perfectly to Section 3, the Golden Age, and the absolute peak of power. Specifically, we're talking about that third step, the Tuluva dynasty, and the legendary reign of Emperor Krishnadevaraya. This guy represents the absolute zenith of the empire's might.
I mean, just try to wrap your head around this stat. At its height, right around the year 1500, the Vijayanagara Empire boasted an estimated population of 18 million people. That is massive. Their territory stretched across an astonishing 880,000 square kilometers, which basically covered almost the entirety of southern India.
So, under Krishnadevaraya's absolutely brilliant leadership from 1509 to 1529, the empire experiences this unprecedented military and cultural boom. He was busy. He systematically subjugated rebellious southern ruling dynasties, successfully fought off the Deccan Sultanates, actually pushing them completely beyond the Krishna River Doab region, and even annexed territory from the Gajapati Empire in Orisha. And what do you do with all the immense wealth from those conquests? Well, you commission grand monuments, stunning architecture, and magnificent temples that eventually made their capital famous across the entire globe.
But, moving to Section 4, Betrayal and Civil War, we hit a major turning point. Here is where the history takes a really sharp turn in our lesson today. Because, as we know, empires rarely fall strictly from the outside in, right? They usually rot from the inside out. And this golden age completely shattered following the death of Krishnadevaraya's successor, Achyuta Deva Raya, in 1542.
Instantly, a chaotic and utterly devastating civil war erupted. It became this incredibly bloody struggle between a tyrant named Salakaraju Tiramala, a guy who went so far as to murder his own royal family members and invite foreign sultans to symbolically sit on the throne, and a very powerful, highly ambitious noble named Raya. As you can imagine, this whole period of assassinations and extreme factionalism deeply weakened the empire's internal structure.
If we zoom in on this incredibly turbulent decade, it's wild how fast things moved. Achyuta dies in 1542, and Salakaraju immediately usurps the throne. But by 1543, Raya manages to rally the disgusted nobility, completely defeats the tyrant, and takes control. Now, he does place a young royal named Sadasiva Raya on the throne, but strictly as a puppet. Make no mistake, Raya kept the real, absolute power entirely for himself.
And the thing about Raya, he was incredibly arrogant. I mean, he actually adopted the title Sultan of the World. Talk about an ego, right? He started playing a highly dangerous diplomatic game, aggressively interfering in the internal affairs of the neighboring Deccan sultanates. His strategy was basically to play the Muslim powers off against one another to maintain his own dominance. And sure, it worked for a little while, but ultimately, it just enraged his rivals and completely united them in their shared hatred of him.
Which brings us to Section 5, the Battle of Talikota and the absolute catastrophe of 1565. All that diplomatic manipulation backfired horribly when those rival Deccan sultans finally just said, okay, enough is enough, and they united their forces against Vijayanagara in January of 1565. So, the absolutely crucial question we have to ask in our lesson today is this. How in the world did a massive, fabulously wealthy superpower, with an army that literally dwarfed its enemies, suffer a complete and total rout at the Battle of Talikota? Like, how does that even happen?
Well, a side-by-side look at the two armies reveals a fatal technological mismatch. You see, because earlier rulers like the great Krishnadevaraya had won using old methods, they just totally failed to invest in military upgrades. Their army was massive, sure, but it was hopelessly outdated. The Vijayanagara forces were relying on slow-moving war elephants, weaker locally bred horses, shorter javelins, and traditional bamboo bows. But on the other side, the Deccan Sultanate army rode blazing fast Persian horses, wielded massive 15 to 16-foot spears for way greater reach, utilized metal crossbows, and even had expert Turkish gunmen managing superior European artillery.
But here's the craziest part. Even with that massive technological mismatch, the sheer size of the Vijayanagara army almost gave them the win anyway. But the battle was ultimately lost to a truly shocking mid-battle betrayal. Two of Raya's own mercenary generals, the Gilani brothers, suddenly switched sides right in the middle of the fight. Amidst the devastating artillery fire and this sudden chaotic betrayal, Raya himself was captured on the battlefield. Sultan Hussein didn't hesitate. He immediately had him beheaded. And as you can guess, seeing their leader's head suddenly displayed on a spear caused complete, utter panic, leading to an absolute rout of the Vijayanagara forces.
Finally, Section 6, the Fall and Lasting Legacy, specifically looking at the ruins of Hampi. Let's look at how this one devastating loss on the battlefield effectively erased centuries of imperial glory.
Immediately following the battle in 1565, the spectacular, insanely wealthy capital of Hampi was violently plundered by the victorious armies. It was completely reduced to the haunting, empty ruins that we see today as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. By 1572, the final Aravidu dynasty desperately moved the capital to Penukonda to try and rebuild whatever they could, but it was no use. The shattered empire just continued to fracture as local governors started declaring their own independence, and the empire officially evaporated from history entirely by 1646.
I want to end today's lesson with a really striking quote by historian Will Durant regarding the fall of this very empire. He writes that civilization is a precarious thing, whose delicate complex of order and liberty, culture and peace may at any time be overthrown by war and ferocious violence. So as you reflect on the incredible 300-year rise and the sudden, truly tragic fall of the magnificent Vijayanagara Empire, I'll leave you with this question. What other seemingly invincible systems in our world today might be just one technological shift or one political betrayal away from total collapse?